and welcome to the Becca and Lizzie Meet series, where we'll be taking you on a journey across the UK to visit lots of farms.
I'm Becca.
And I'm Lizzie.
And today we're getting ready for Halloween. To get ready, we visited a pumpkin farm, and in just a minute we'll be taking you along too.
Whilst you watch the video, we want you to think of lots of exciting questions, but before that, we have a couple of questions for you too.
So, we hope you've got these activity sheets at the ready. The questions are on here, so we want you to jot down lots of things on your sheets.
I can see a lot of people already that have them, so I think it's time we roll the video.
Absolutely.
Hello, we're Becca and Lizzie.
I'm Becca and I'm a farmer.
And I'm Lizzie and I'm not from a farming background.
Today, we're getting ready for Halloween. So we visited Rample Pumpkin Patch to learn all about pumpkins. Do you want to come pumpkin picking with us?
You do? That's great. But first, to help us, we need to find Farmer Lou. Look who we found at the greenhouse.
It's Farmer Lou. Hi, Farmer Lou.
Hi everyone.
What are you up to today?
I'm looking after some of my plants.
Great, but where are the pumpkins?
Well, the pumpkins are actually in the field, but originally they started in there. Shall I show you?
Yes, please.
All of our pumpkins begin here, where we take a small seed like this and plant it in a small pot.
What? So those giant orange pumpkins come from a tiny seed like that?
Yes. Have any of you guys planted seeds at home before?
You have? That's fantastic. But what happens next?
So the next part is germination, where the plant needs lots of water and sunlight to grow. So this is the small pot that we use for planting the seeds. We fill it up with soil to about 3/4 full, and then we pop the seed in on its side so it doesn't carry any water. We then fill it over the top with some more compost, give it a quick water with our watering can, and it's ready to germinate. Once the seed starts to sprout, and the seeds are about 3 to 4 inches tall, they're ready to be taken from the pot and be planted in the field. We use our pumpkin planter to plant everything so it's evenly spaced apart and there's plenty of room for the pumpkins to grow. So the next part after germination is pollination, and I've got the perfect place to show you where that happens with some happy little helpers.
Lou, I thought you were bringing us to see your happy little helpers, but where are they?
Well, I have. They're actually in here. This is a beehive that we borrowed from a local honey producer.
But what do bees have to do with making pumpkins?
So pumpkins have 2 flowers, a male and a female flower. The bees go to the male flower, carry the pollen over to the female flower. This then creates the fruit which pumpkins grow from.
So where are the pumpkins?
Well, they're over here. I'll show you.
Well, these look familiar.
They do, but why are some of them green?
So initially pumpkins are green, and as they ripen they turn orange. This is the same for lots of other orange fruit and veg, like carrots and sweet potato. It's a sign for animals in the wild that the pumpkins are ready to eat, and it's a sign for us that they're ready to pick.
So the pumpkins have turned orange, they're ready to pick. What happens next?
So we open up the farm and welcome families onto the patch to come and pick their own. Or if you don't have a patch nearby, you can get one from your local farm shop or your local supermarket.
Fantastic. I love picking a pumpkin ready to carve for Halloween. Do you like pumpkin carving?
You do? That's great.
Well, all that's left to say is a big thank you to Farmer Lou for having us on her pumpkin patch and showing us how pumpkins are grown.
No problem, guys.
If you've got any questions for Farmer Lou, bear with us and you can ask them in a moment.
All that's left to say here is goodbye for now.
Bye! It was great to see you all at the farm with us.
And as you can see, we've now got Farmer Lou to answer all of your questions.
Hi everybody.
Now the questions you ask come straight through to our phones. And I think now's a good time to get cracking with our first question. Lizzie, what is it?
Well, we've already had so many questions sent in. It's hard to choose, isn't it? But we're going to start with Tommy in year 3. Hi Tommy. And they've asked, how many pumpkins do you grow every year?
So this year on the farm, we've planted about 5,000 pumpkin plants. Now, like we discussed in the video, not all of the not every single plant produces one pumpkin. Some produce more. You can get 2 to 3 pumpkins on some plants, and some even up to 8 to 10 pumpkins. It all depends on the variety.
Wow, that's fascinating. And we have our next question. Now this is from Gemma, and she wants to know, do you have tractors and how many on the farm?
Yeah, so on our farm we don't just have pumpkins, we have cows and sheep, and we grow potatoes as well. So to do all that, we have 2 tractors on the farm. One of them is a little old vintage tractor, a little red tractor, a Massey Ferguson. And then we have a new, modern, bigger tractor, which is a John Deere. So one's red and one's green.
Oh, maybe we'll have to give them a drive. Would you like to drive a tractor when you're older? Well, we've got more questions coming in. The next one is, why are some pumpkins white? Now, I think that's a really good question.
That's right, because on the video we saw some orange ones and some green ones, but there were definitely some white ones there as well.
Yeah. So, like we spoke about in the video, the thing that makes pumpkins orange is the carotene. That's a compound which you get in lots of other fruits and veg, like carrots and sweet potato. Now, the reason that some pumpkins are white, they've actually been genetically created by scientists and farmers, just to add a bit of variety really. That was first done in the 21st century, and they've been that popular that lots of pumpkin farmers grow them now up and down the country.
Is it safe to be changing the colours on pumpkins? Can we still eat them?
Oh yeah. I think every type of pumpkin, unless it's been treated, is eatable. And there are definitely some that taste better than others. If you are going pumpkin picking, the one I would suggest is an autumn crown. They're the ones that taste the best. They're actually grey. They're not even orange and they're not even white.
Well, I've never seen a grey pumpkin before.
Have you? Well, we've got more questions coming, and this one is from Scrooby Academy. Hi everyone. Why are some pumpkins different sizes? Great question.
So that goes back to what we were talking about before, about how many pumpkins do we grow. So depending on how many pumpkins you get off your plant, does then depend on how big they grow. So for example, if a pumpkin plant just has 2 pumpkins on it, then they're going to be bigger. Whereas, like I was talking about before, if it gets up to 8 or 10 pumpkins, then the pumpkins are often quite smaller. That's when you get your little mini ones that you can get, that sometimes are even just a few centimetres big.
Ah, interesting. We've got a question from Tom in year 2 here, so thanks Tom. How do you pick the pumpkins? Now, I think that's a really good question.
So when it comes to pumpkin picking, we tend to cut all of our pumpkins just from a health and safety perspective, because obviously we have hundreds of people come onto the farm and picking their own. They pick them from where the pumpkins have actually grown, but we cut them just to keep everybody safe, because we know that we shouldn't be running around with scissors or sharp objects, don't we?
And then do people just pick up the pumpkin and take it home?
Yeah, so people will come to the farm and there's lots to do whilst you're there, but once you get into the pumpkin patch, obviously you don't just want to pick the first pumpkin you see, you want to pick the best pumpkin. So what we often find is people will take the wheelbarrows and then they'll pick maybe 6 or 7 of the best pumpkins. They'll go all over the patch and pick ones they really like, and then when it comes to the end, they only really want to take 1 or 2, so then they pick through and choose the best ones.
Oh, well, I can't wait to go pumpkin picking this year. Anybody else? Gosh, we've got more questions. Well, this one is from year 1 and 2 at Montgomery School. So thanks everyone. What is the biggest pumpkin you have grown?
Oh, well, so we haven't grown anything enormous, but we have done some what we would call Atlantic giants. So that's a specific variety. They do need a bit more nurturing than a normal pumpkin. You've got to look after them in your greenhouse for a long time. I think the biggest that we've grown probably weighed just over 50 kilos. So it was big, but the biggest pumpkin on record has I think been over 1,200 kilos.
Oh
so
my
it was
goodness.
Massive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So 50 kilos. How many of our primary school children? That's almost bigger than me, isn't it?
Yeah.
50 kilos. That's fantastic. Oh, we've got another good question. Do the pumpkins grow under the ground or on top? Now, I think because you were cutting the stalks, that means they grow on top?
Yeah, that's right. So the seeds go into a little pot like we showed on the video. They then create the little plant, which then goes into the ground, and off that plant is where your pumpkins grow. So they're all on top of the ground, ready for us to cut once they're ready.
Amazing. Wow. Charlie wants to know, which is your favourite tractor?
Oh, that's a good question. That's quite a controversial question, Charlie, because I'm going to upset somebody. But I would probably say the Massey Ferguson.
The red one?
The red one.
Ooh.
Only because she's a bit older. She's been doing really well. We look after her. And yeah, she's a good tractor. She's a good machine. She's served the farm for a very long time. But the John Deere is newer, it's more modern, and it probably is more versatile.
Well, Becca likes the green
Yes,
tractor.
I have to say the green one's my favourite.
Whereas I'd like a pink tractor.
We have our next question from Helpringham Primary School, and they want to know, why do pumpkins grow green first?
So that's a really good question. So when the pumpkins do initially grow, everything comes out green, and then as they ripen with the sunshine and the nutrients from the soil and what we spoke about before, the carotene, that's when they start to turn orange. So there will be times where you see pumpkins and they haven't gone orange and they're still green, and that's probably just because they've taken a bit longer to ripen and they haven't quite got there. Could be due to the weather. We've not had as much sunshine, which we haven't this summer. I mean, the summer holidays weren't great because all it did was rain. So they have taken a bit longer to ripen this time. So some are still green, but we've still got plenty of orange ones as well.
Fantastic. Well, what happens to the pumpkins that don't get picked? Great question.
Oh, that is a good question. So yeah, as you can imagine, we still have a few pumpkins left over from the patch at the end, because we still want those people on the last day to have lots of choice. Now, what we do is we have a local pig farmer come. He comes down to the patch, he picks up all the pumpkins, and they go to a pig farm for the pigs to eat, because they love them.
Oh, tasty treats for the pigs.
That's amazing, and it's great to know that nothing's wasted.
Yeah.
So, Olivia wants to know, are pumpkins a fruit or a vegetable? Now, this is a question that we were going to ask you watching. So, we want you to have a little think about that. Are they a fruit? Are they a vegetable? And let us know why. And we'll give you 1 minute to have a go at answering that question for us.
Welcome back, everybody. So did you get the answer right? Pumpkins are actually a fruit. The reason being is that anything that comes from a flower is classed as a fruit.
Well, there you go. I've definitely learnt something new today, and I hope you have as well. Now, this is a really good question, and it's from Dolphin Home School. Now, they've asked, do pumpkins need anything special to grow?
That's a really good question, guys. So, not really. Like we showed you in the video, they start off in a pot in the greenhouse. The reason we do that is so they get plenty of sunlight. We water them, so they do get the water, but then they also stay warm. If they get too cold too soon on, then they're not going to grow. Once you pop them in the ground, they don't necessarily need the heat as much, but they still definitely need water and they definitely need sunshine. That's what helps with the flowers, that's what helps with the plants to grow. And then when the flowers are produced, like we spoke about with the bees and the pollination, you get the female flowers and the male flowers, and you get the bees to carry and pollinate the flowers. That's what then creates the pumpkin.
And I guess that ties in really well with a question from Ben, because Ben wants to know, how much space do you need, and can you grow one in your garden?
So that's absolutely, you definitely can. And if you haven't done it this year, it is something that I would recommend for next year. So like we have a greenhouse, you don't need a greenhouse to germinate your pumpkin. You can do it on your kitchen windowsill at home. All you need is a couple of pumpkin seeds, some pots and some compost. Keep them warm, keep them watered, and your plant will start to grow. Then in your garden at home, you don't even necessarily need to have any ground. It can just be in a big tub. You just need quite a bit of space, maybe couple of feet, 24 inches. What you would then do is pop your plant in there. The vines will grow quite long, so you do need a bit of space, but it doesn't have to all be soil. Pop your plant in. Again, like we said, keep it in the sunlight and keep it watered, and your pumpkins will begin to grow.
Wow, that's really great. I think I'm going to try growing pumpkins next year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, we've got another question here. Why do we have pumpkins at Halloween? Now that's a very, very interesting question.
Yeah, so that one I'm not 100% sure on, but I know initially they started off with turnips.
Oh yes.
And people way back when, in the hundreds, whenever it was, people used to carve turnips, but it was really, really difficult. That's when pumpkins were created, and then instead of carving turnips, we started to use pumpkins instead.
Well, there you go. And I hope lots of you will be carving pumpkins at Halloween soon as well.
That's a question Amy's asked.
Oh.
Amy said, what's your favourite thing to carve on a pumpkin? Great question.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, I think we could all answer this one, couldn't we?
Oh, yeah.
So, what have I done in the past? I mean, we did actually have a carving competition at last year's pumpkin patch, and some of them were works of art. They were amazing. We had owls' faces carved in. We had farm animals, pigs, cows, sheep. We had lots of scary faces as well. But I think my favourite would probably be my dog. My dog Willow. Love to carve her into a pumpkin. I'm not very good at it though. I don't have the patience. What about you guys?
Oh, well, I like doing things from films that I've seen, but I also like to do farm animals. But this year, I'm also going to be doing my dog Willow.
Yeah, there you go.
And I have to say, farm animals, being a farmer would be my favourite as well. Rex in year 2 has asked, why did you decide to grow pumpkins? Which I think is a really interesting question, because not every farmer grows pumpkins.
No, so we are quite lucky where we are. The land is flat, so it's perfect for growing food, like potatoes that we already have. So we decided to diversify the farm and do something different. We wanted to open the farm up and welcome people onto the land. So we thought if we did a pick your own pumpkin patch, it would allow lots of families to come onto the farm, learn more about food and produce and how it's grown, and then they can have the joy of picking their own pumpkin. And we have a maze as well, so that shows you how corn's grown, how sweet corn, and you can wander around there as well.
Great. Well, more questions are coming in. Great job, everybody. The next one is from Class 3 at Kempsford. So thanks, everybody there. How much experience do you need to be a pumpkin farmer?
That is a very easy question. Zero experience whatsoever. Anybody can grow pumpkins. They're one of the easiest things to grow, I would say. They're very hardy, so they can grow under many conditions. As long as they're warm and they've got the sunshine and the water, they're very happy. So you don't need any experience. When we opened the pumpkin patch, I'd never grown a pumpkin before, and we just thought we'd give it a go.
There you go. Maybe we'll all be pumpkin farmers by the end of this. Farmers are very focused on the seasons, aren't they, and different times of year and the different weather at times of year.
Yeah.
And I think that ties in well with the question from Tom, who's asked, what time of year should I plant my pumpkin seeds?
Yeah, so we want to be thinking, even though Halloween isn't till October, you want to be thinking about your pumpkin seeds in April, which seems way in advance. But because we need so much sunlight, And in the summer months, that's when we get lots of sun and lots of warmer weather. That's when you start to grow your pumpkins. So they go into your little pot in your greenhouse or on your kitchen windowsill, probably I'd say mid to late April, and then they go into the ground, probably say end of May, beginning of June. And then they take all summer to grow.
Wow, I didn't realise it was that early.
It's a long process.
Yeah.
Well, we've got another one here from Anthony. Do all pumpkins taste the same?
So, that's a good question. So I'll be honest, I've not probably tried every single variety, but I have tried a few in my time. Like we were saying before, the grey ones probably taste the best. A lot of pumpkins, they do generally taste the same, but the flavours can just be a bit stronger in others than they are in some.
So I guess it would maybe be a bit like different varieties of apple. They taste quite similar, but there's some which are a bit different.
Yeah, some which are a bit sweeter, some which are a bit juicier, exactly the same.
There we go. We've got a question from St John's here, and the children there want to know, how long have you been a farmer?
Oh, that's a good question. So I didn't actually grow up on a farm. My grandparents had a dairy farm, and we used to spend a lot of time there growing up, helping with milking cows and the silo season. And then I actually married, my husband has a farm, and on there, that's where we live. We have cows, we have sheep, and we have potatoes. And I moved there probably 5 years ago. And then we started the pumpkin patch 3 years ago. So I've been a pumpkin farmer for 3 years, to be precise.
But it just shows that anybody can get involved in farming, can't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. To grow something, to get involved in the industry. If you're thinking that one day you'd like to be a farmer, but you don't live on a farm, or your parents don't come from a farm, you definitely can do. There's loads of options.
And lots of different ways into farming and into agriculture. You can study about farming, you can go to university and learn about farming, you can go and get some experience on farm and help out, can't you? There's lots of different ways.
Lots of choice.
Lots of work experience, going to college, lots
Yeah.
and lots of exciting ways to get into farming.
Absolutely. Now, this is an interesting question. I feel like they're all interesting, and we're definitely learning things too. James from St John's wants to know, what's inside a pumpkin seed?
Wow.
Ooh. So inside, do you know what? I've never actually cracked one open, to be honest with you, because you can actually eat pumpkin seeds. You can obviously dry them out from the pumpkins that you pick. You can, when you carve them out, those insides, don't feel like you have to get rid of them. You can take those seeds and you can just lie them on a paper towel, put them in the kitchen windowsill, and once they've dried you can eat them. You can even buy them off a shelf in your supermarket.
Wow.
And they are quite nice and they're very nutritious, but I couldn't tell you what's in them.
I guess it'll be some little kind of nutrients to help that shoot come out when the seed germinates.
Well, that's it. And then obviously with the carotene, the pumpkins themselves, that's lots of vitamin A, which helps with your eyesight and your kidney function and the functions of your organs inside your body. So there could be some of that as well in there, but we might research that one and let you know.
Well, we've got a fantastic question here from both Class 3 at Kempsford and also asked by Woodbury Soliton Primary School. So they've asked, what are the biggest challenges facing pumpkin farmers today? Great question.
Oh, so I mean, for this year for us, the biggest challenge has most definitely been the weather. So when we planted the pumpkin seeds in the ground in early June, the weather was so dry. It did not rain for 5 weeks and we were panicking. We were really worried that our pumpkins weren't going to survive. So to do that, what we did was we actually ended up watering them. So lots of, if you have big farms, they have irrigation systems. These are pipes running under the ground which basically spray water, a bit like a sprinkler does, onto your crops to keep them dry. We're not quite that, to keep them wet, sorry. We're not quite that big. So we actually used a tanker to spray water onto them. And then we kept them watered, they greened up and they leafed up and they were doing well. And then it didn't stop raining. And the biggest thing for us this year has been trying to make sure that the pumpkins don't rot, because that's one of the worst things, is too much water sat around your pumpkins, like us when you're in the bath and your skin gets all wrinkly because you've been in the bath too long. That's exactly what happens to a pumpkin. So what we ended up doing was cutting some of the pumpkins a bit earlier, the ones that were already ripe and orange, and actually bringing them into the building just to keep them dry, to make sure that there was going to be plenty of choice for people when they came to the pumpkin patch. And then we've put them all back out now that people are coming down to the farm.
And does climate change affect the rest of the farm as well?
Yeah, so it definitely does, really. You know, with the land that we have lots of other animals, especially with the cows. Cows can be big and heavy, and they can, you know, cause some damage to your land, really, especially when it's so wet. So it is something that farmers are always thinking about, and something that farmers are trying to help with. There's lots of other things that farmers do to try and, you know, combat and help net zero and combat climate change. Probably a lot more than what we can do, but some of these bigger farms are doing fantastic, really, and smaller farms.
Well, I think we've got time for a couple more questions. What food can you make out of pumpkins?
Oh, well, there's lots of good recipes, actually. I mean, the first one that a lot of people think of is pumpkin soup.
Yes.
So a bit like what you would use butternut squash for, you can use butternut squash in a lot of things, and that's exactly what a pumpkin is. So pumpkin soup, and then in America they do a lot of pumpkin pie.
Oh, pumpkin pie.
Yeah,
Oh.
so that's a bit more of a sweet thing, and they have that at Thanksgiving in America. It's not something I've ever tried, but it's meant to be very good with ice cream.
Ooh, well, we might have to get cooking this evening. Another question now, I don't know if you know the answer to this, Lou, but Archie wants to know, why is inside of a pumpkin mushy and stringy? Because there's quite different textures from the skin to the inside.
Yeah, there is. So that's just kind of how they grow. It's the same with the bigger pumpkins or the smaller pumpkins. Even if you got one that was, say, that big, 10 centimetres, and you chop that in half, it's not going to be as big, obviously, but the inside's still going to be that mushy stringiness. And obviously that's where the seeds are. So we can take those seeds, we can dry them out, like we said, we can eat them. You can actually save those seeds for next year and plant your pumpkin with them. So if you do get a pumpkin this year, get that seed out on the side, drying in the sunshine, and then save it for April next year. And then with your little pot and your compost, you can get that planted and grow your own pumpkin next year.
Great tip.
Well, that is a fantastic tip. And I think that's going to bring us on to our last question for today, which is from Montgomery School. What's the best thing about being a pumpkin farmer?
Oh, so I'll be honest with you, it's a long slog. It's hard days, it's long days. You know, we use, you know, the hand cut. It's a lot of hard work. But the best thing is when we see you guys, all the kids, come down to the farm and your faces light up because there's thousands of pumpkins to pick from and you don't know where to start, and we see lots of families coming down and enjoying the days. That's definitely the best thing about growing pumpkins for us.
Well, thank you so much, Farmer Lou, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to have you all here.
It has. I think we should say thank you to Farmer Lou for answering all of your pumpkin questions.
No problem, guys.
Don't forget to catch us for the next episode on the 9th of November, and tag us on social media at NFU Education.
All that's left to say is we hope you have a happy Halloween. I hope you carve lots of pumpkins and have a really, really happy half term. Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.